We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. The better angels of our nature. That last quotation, of course, from Lincoln's first inaugural address. But in our fourth story in the countdown, it is Lincoln's second inaugural address, which appears to be inspiring and perhaps intimidating President-elect Obama on the eve of his own inaugural. Obama's brief remarks from the Lincoln Memorial on Sunday, the second Obama family outing to that monument on successive weekends. The previous Saturday, January 10th, his daughter Malia, as you might have heard, telling her father that as America's first African-American president, he needed to live up to Lincoln's second in his own speech. Quote, "It better be good." Mr. Obama himself keenly aware of how difficult that might be, saying of looking to Lincoln for guidance, quote, "I'm not sure whether that has been wise, because every time you read that second inaugural, you start getting intimidated, especially because it is really short. There is a genius to Lincoln that is not going to be matched." Another president finds that out. A pleasure to be joined now by NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Welcome.
Thank you, Keith.
Lincoln's second, is it the holy grail for all incoming presidents, or does it happen to be particularly relevant to this one and thus particularly daunting to this one?
Well, the level of poetry is something that most presidents probably seek, but not every president could pull it off. Could you imagine Richard Nixon saying, "with malice toward none"? So sometimes it really has to fit, but it really does fit in this case because we've been through a period that's been very divisive. Last decade especially, people feel wounded. Obama sees the need to heal this country, and if you look at his life, it's something that he is very good at, very natural at.
The president-elect said today, we can't allow any idle hands. He also said if we're waiting for somebody else to do something, it never gets done. Obviously, in the campaign, it was, we are the people we have been waiting for. Right. Are we seeing a potential theme in here that echoes Kennedy's ask not what you can do for your country, or ask what you can do for your country?
I think we are. You know, and the best presidents in history do call on the American people for sacrifice, and not only after they're elected, but before. And that's true of Kennedy. When he was at the Democratic Convention, Los Angeles, 1960, he said, "The new frontier of which I speak is not what I intend to offer the American people, it's what I intend to ask of them." He was saying that before he went to the polling place.
So how likely is the president-elect to pull something out of a theme for this out of thin air that we have not heard some precursor to in the last year?
Not very likely, because one of the things about Obama is, if you go back to his announcement speech, February 2007, Springfield, Illinois, and take it all the way to the speech he gave on election night, they're remarkably the same. This is a pretty consistent guy, pretty consistent theme throughout this campaign.
There has been so much bipartisanship in the transition period that Mitch McConnell swooned. He commended the transition team on dealing with Republicans and in that fashion, and there has been a level of politeness in both directions, culminating with this tribute to Senator McCain tonight. Could that, in fact, be a theme? Could there be some sort of call to bipartisan arms, if you will, even if the arms are figurative?
I'd be astounded if that were not true. Jefferson, 1801, we're all Republicans, we're all Federalists, and also this is Obama's nature. Contrast that with George W. Bush's first meeting as president with Tom Daschle, the Democratic leader of the Senate. Daschle says he went in, and Bush said to him, "I hope you'll never lie to me." And Daschle didn't know what to say. He said, "Well, I hope you'll never lie to me." It's a little bit different from this kind of a spirit.
Yeah, just proving that hope is not the answer to everything.
Absolutely.
To what degree, given the nature of what today is, given the nature of where we are, and given the nature of the ethnic origins of the incoming president, to what degree can he invoke Dr. Martin Luther King and not seem to be overdoing it, not seem to be borrowing from it as opposed to recognizing it?
No way of overdoing it. You know, choosing a man on the basis of the color, not on the basis of the color of his skin, but the content of his character. That's a lot of this election. Plus, Martin Luther King's 80th birthday today, pretty big birthday. Plus, you know, going on to Lincoln in a couple of weeks, Lincoln's 200th birthday.
Yeah.
It's almost, you know, it almost seems in the stars.
The last point, I guess, would be the reading of the tea leaves today by the Washington Post. They looked at the comments that were done on the Sunday shows by people like Robert Gibbs and others yesterday, and they have concluded that restoring confidence is a likely theme. Is it a new one?
It's not a new one, and when governments fail, presidents get elected and lead on the basis of that. For instance, Jimmy Carter, 1976, got elected mainly because people said, this is not Nixon, this is not someone who's dishonest, this is someone who can run a government. You know, that happened to some extent. But in Obama's case, he's essentially saying not only am I going to have a different set of ethics and ideology, but government has failed in places like Katrina, perhaps most of all in Iraq.
Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian, on the eve of what I guess is the most anticipated inaugural address maybe since 1961.
I feel like staying up all night like Christmas.
Well, judging by the traffic, we may have no other choice but to do so.
I think you're right.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.